So this coming Shabbat, we're going to be learning and reading Parashat Vayishlach. I hope I'm not causing anyone any faint feelings. We're giving out a Hebrew source sheet. Someone said, don't worry, we're going to try to overcome anyway. So we're teaching how to overcome phobia and fear. And I'm going to be accompanying all of us as we go through this source sheet. So today's topic, whether they're related or not, is the passing away and burial of two great patriarchs and matriarchs, Yitzchak and Rachel. No, they're not a married couple. When I thought about this topic, I said, well, people would be confused. Yitzchak was married to Rachel? Wasn't Yitzchak married to Rivka? So yeah, but that's the topic. And why is that the topic? Because it appears in the portion of the week, Parashat Vayishlach. Let's go to as far as the order in the Torah is concerned, let's go to the second one first and the first one second. Okay? We open up the end of the Parsha, source number 1, Bereshit Lamed Hey, Psukim Kav Zayin Kav Tet. What I want to do is review what the Torah has to tell us, try to understand some major points, what messages is the Torah trying to share with us, and what can we go home with, some points, some messages, some values about these points. So first we're going to deal with the passing away of Yitzchak. As you see, Bereshit Lamed Hey, Psukim, the 3 verses, which are really not where they are. Yeah, the last 3 verses of this chapter. So let's read. Vayavo Yaakov Yitzchak Aviv. Finally, I'm adding. Finally, he's coming home to his Ava after more than 35 years of not being there. He arrives to Yitzchak Aviv. Where is he? Mamre. Mamre is a town. In which general vicinity? Kiryat Arba. Well, is there another name for Kiryat Arba? Hebron. Kiryat Arba and Hebron are the same place. Asher Gasham, Avraham, Yitzchak. And the Torah bothers to tell us, well, that's been the hometown for Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak. Well, why wasn't it the hometown for Yaakov? He had to be on the run. He had to go away. He feared his brother killing him. So a good part of the life of Yaakov had to live outside, 35 years not being in the land of Israel. So the home place, by the way, the hometown for Avraham Avinu was only towards the end of his life, obviously, right? Because that's when he purchased the Marat Machpelah. And now is at the end of the life of his wife.
What does Marat mean, cave?
Ma'ara is a cave, that's right. Machpelah is the double cave.
Oh,
and then the Torah tells us the longevity of his life. Vayu yemei Yitzchak me'at shana u'shmonim shana. He lived 180 years. B'li ayin hara. He had a lengthy life. And then we're told, the last verse of this piece, Vayigva, he expired. Vayigva Yitzchak, Vayamot. You see the way we read a verb with the 2 kamats, one after the other. Vayamot. The second kamat is an O, not vayamat, rather vayamot. Okay? We're reading the last line of source 1. Vayigva Yitzchak vayamot, and he died. Vayasef elamav, and he's gathered to his people. What does that mean?
Buried.
No. He's gathered to his people, meeting in the spiritual world. His soul is now meeting up with all of his family souls. Zakein usvayamim. He lived a life of elderliness and satiated days, meaning he had a good life. Well, he had a good life because he was a great believer in God. But don't forget that he had a hard life, didn't he? Yeah. In the age of 30, in his 30s, he was brought to the Akedah.
39.
Okay, and then he had to be exiled during the time of famine, and he lived in Gerar, in the outskirts of the Gaza Strip, and he lived there for many years. But in his last days, he came back to live at home in the city of Hebron. Okay, Hebron. And then we're told, Vayikberu oto, and they buried him. Who? Esav, Yaakov, Banav. Okay, so what can we raise? What elements or values or questions may we raise regarding these 3 verses about the passing away and the burial of Yitzchak Avinu. Number one, anyone want to make a suggestion? What do you notice? Huh? Well, one thing we're going to notice is the lack of chronological order of our Torah. Why? We're going to learn that in next week's Parsha, when we learn about the children of Yaakov Avinu and the sale of Yosef, only then do we learn about that Yitzchak Avinu passes away. Yet it's brought here, even before the event of us learning about Yosef and learning about the sale of Yosef. So that's the first point that Rashi makes. Let's see it right now. We're saying that there are source sheets here for those that walk in now. Thank you. Let's read source number 2. Rashi brings this on the pasuk Vayigva Yitzchak. You follow? Source number 2. Rashi says immediately, Ein mukdam umuchar b'Torah. Rashi is bringing a famous Gemara in the Talmud Pesachim. In our Torah, it's not chronological order. Number 2. It's not written in chronological order, and therefore don't be amazed that only next week you're going to read about the sale of Yitzchak. And therefore Rashi says, Mechirato she Yosef. Try to follow the Hebrew gentleman. I know it's not easy. The sale of Yosef, kadma lemitato she Yitzchak, Yud Bet Shana. 12 years did the sale of Yosef precede the passing away of Yitzchak. Okay? Some of the proofs that are brought here, I'm not going to get into all of it, but we should know these facts. Rashi says, Sharek kishanolad Yaakov, who remembers when Yaakov was born, how old was Yitzchak? That's already stated in the beginning of Toldot. Yitzchak was 60 years old. Excellent. Line 2 of this Rashi. Haya Yitzchak ben Shishim Shana. Yitzchak was 60 years at the birth of Yaakov. And he brings the pasuk. Go skip to the middle. V'Yitzchak mate. When did Yitzchak die? Bishnat kuf kaf liYaakov. Look, if there's 60 years, there's a gap between Yitzchak and Yaakov. Yes or no?
20 years old was Yaakov.
Exactly. Yaakov is 120 years when his father, Yitzchak, passes away. I'm skipping to the last line. V'Yosef nimkar. Yosef was sold ben Yud Zayin Shana. We're going to see that. He was sold at the age of 17. Vota Shana, when he was 17, it was Shnat Mea Ushmon, was 108 years to Yaakov. We're proving clearly that Yitzchak Avinu only dies after the sale. So why is it brought here? Answer. Torah is not a book of history. Torah is not written in chronological order. And God may have his reasons, in particular why here he's teaching us. Rashi doesn't get into that, by the way, over here. Maybe we're going to see that in the Ramban. Why specifically is the lack of chronological order presented here? But first, understand, there's a value. There is no chronological order in the Torah. Just because the passing away of Yitzchak happens here and Yosef's sale happens there, that means it happened in that order? No. Maybe, let's see the Ramban Nachmanides. I think he does touch upon why here is it not written in chronological order. Okay? Number 3. Source number 3, Ramban, Great Nachmanides, Perek Lamed Hey, chapter 35. This too is on verse 28, Pasuk Kafei. Vayu Yemei Yitzchak. Look what the Ramban is doing. And these are the days of Yitzchak. Ein mukdam umuchar b'Torah. There's no chronological order. Mechirato she Yosef, the sale of Yosef, kamat preceded limitato she Yitzchak l'shon Rashi. There are times Ramban educationally sees a need to copy Rashi. By the way, he's rightful. He is not stealing anyone's divrei Torah. He says this is what Rashi wrote. Okay, he could have, if someone wanted to be a cheat and say, I think this is the meaning, and he says in his own name, but you got it from Rashi. And therefore the Talmud says in Masechet Megillah, on the pasuk, Vatomer Esther b'shem Mordechai, and Esther told the king in the name of Mordechai that the king's life, Achashverosh, was saved. The Gemara says, Kol ha'omer davar b'shem omro, mevi geula la'olam. Anyone that says something in the name of the person that said it, you're bringing redemption to the world. Not the Maral of Prague there explains, not only you're not cheating, but you're promoting You're giving credit to who the credit is due. Let's say you said a Dvar Torah, and I hear it. I'm going to say on my Shabbat table, I heard this Torah from Yaakov. So that's great. I'm not saying in my own name. So first, Ramban Nachmanides quotes Rashi. Let's continue. Ukvar katafti, and I already wrote a different Ramban, line 2 in chapter 11. This is a practice of our scripture of the Torah for all generations. What is he talking about, the Ramban? Yisaper inyan ha'adam v'toldotav u'mitato. First, the Torah will tell us about the matter of a particular image, who his children are, and when he passes away, after the comma, and now making the word and then, v'yatchil b'toldot hador ha'acher. And then we'll start talking about the next generation, even though the times are not directly one after the other. What does the Ramban say? V'roi haya lakdim mitat Yitzchak l'toldot Yaakov. Gentlemen, do you all know the name of the next parsha? In Vayeshev, if you have a chumash next to you, I hope you do. If you don't, I'm not going to penalize you, but it's good. It says in verse 2 of next week's parsha, these are the generations of Yaakov, Yosef, and everyone else. That's the next parsha. So what do we see here? The life of Yitzchak, the children that he brought, and is passing away. And now, in the next upcoming chapters, the Torah starts telling us about the next patriarch. These are the generations, Eile Toldot Yaakov. That's the point he's making. So really, and therefore Ramban says it was worthy that the Torah here precede the passing away of Yitzchak to the generations of Yaakov. Where else was this done? Kasher asa b'Avraham uv'chol dorot rishonim. You see that? Mm-hmm. So the Torah has a style, according to Ramban. And one of the styles is to tell us about the patriarch, his great generations, his passing away, and then let's go on to the next patriarch. And that's what's happening here. So even though it's not in order, meaning the event of Yaakov, the sale of Yosef, comes before the passing away of Yitzchak, the Torah, it doesn't matter. The Torah is not written in chronological order, and here there's a special reason why not to do it. Further, he says, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can. Aval, however, middle of the third line of the Nachmanides, after the comma. Yitkaven HaKatuv Lagid, the Torah wants to tell us, Ki Yitzchak מת בשיבה טובה. He lived a long age life. זקן ושבע ימים, אחרי ששב אליו בנו המבורך, הנוכל מעלתו. Why are we told now that Yitzchak lived a great life, long life, plenty of days and years? Because who finally came home? It's a happy ending, as we say at the end of the film. It's a happy ending. I'm sure Yitzchak was not happy for those decades that his son is not here. Okay? He can't go to the bar mitzvah of his children. He can't see the birth, right? But now he must be happy. And that's why the Torah goes out and say he lived a long age life, Seva Tova, because his son, who's what? Inheriting his virtue, Yaakov, has come home. So that's a point that why the Torah wants to tell us about his passing away. Why is the Torah, a summary of what Ramban is saying so far? Why is the Torah telling us now about the passing away of Yitzchak if it's only happening really later as far as the portions of the week are concerned? Answer. Do you know why he's passing away after a very good life? Because finally his son, Yaakov, has come home after more than 35 years of being away. And that son, Yaakov, is the one inheriting the virtue of his father. Okay. The third pasuk that we read above is who is at the funeral service or who's doing the burial. I'm sure a lot of people were at the funeral service, but here the Torah says who buried him. What did it say? Vayikbiru oto. What did it say up above? Esav and? That's right, V'Yakov banav. Go back to the Ramban, one line above the last line. And he says the following, Ukvarua bechavod, with great honor. He was buried by who? Esav v'Yaakov banav gedolei ha'olam, the leaders of the world. What will be the leaders of the cradles of future history? On the one hand, Esav. On the other hand, Yaakov. They are the premier responsible persons that are what? Burying their father. Now, let me ask you something. When you read the Pasuk, were you told where he was buried? Was it in the Yerushalayim cemetery? Where? Does it say that in your Pasuk? Not in mine.
Okay.
So what's your question?
Why? Where is he buried? Where is he written?
Aleph, where is he buried? And Bet, if he's buried in Marat Machpelah, like Yaakov says, then why doesn't the Torah state this? Good question. When Sarah was buried, it says she was buried there. When Yaakov's going to demand from his sons when he's in Egypt, don't bury me here when I die. He causes them to swear, bring me back to my father and grandfather's burial place, which is the Machpelah cave in Hebron. Why is it mentioned here? Look at the Ramban in this last sentence. V'lo hu tzrach la'azkir. There's no need to mention. Ki kvarua b'marat ha'machpelah. There's no need. The Torah to tell me a novelty, something that I perhaps would not have known. But here there's no need. Why not? Ba'avor, the last line of the Ramban, she'izkir ki haya ba'irahi. Didn't the Torah tell us that Yaakov has now arrived to his father Yitzchak in which town? No, it's not Cincinnati, Ohio. Which town is it? Kiryat Arba Hebron. So if the Torah says Yitzchak is living in Hebron, what do you think? They're going to bury him in Beersheba? That's what he says at the end. Since he was living in that city. Where are they going to bury him? Rak, last three words, Bekever Aviv, only in the burial site of his father. It's obvious. So here I think we learn another value. We, more newcomers to the study of Torah, we're understanding the Torah is neither a novel nor a book of history, and it's not a book of records. And if there's a need, a lesson to teach us, the Torah will say it. If there's no need, then God's not going to have it written. So if we're already told that Yaakov has arrived home to his father Yitzchak in the city of Kiryat Arba is Hebron, then it's obvious. The Torah does not mention the obvious. There's no need. And therefore, that answers our question, Aleph, why his life and passing away precedes the next parasha, because now we see the complete picture. Yaakov has come home, and now he's buried. And by the way, who's burying him? Esav and Yaakov. Esav, he sends a fax or a pigeon carrier to ask Esav to come from where? Seir, Edom. We learned that he's already living there. Hebron is not next door. It could be a day or 2 days of traveling at least. It could be, okay? At least. And what does Esav do? He comes back, apparently. And by the way, who's mentioned first? Wasn't Yaakov the premier son? Shouldn't it be Yaakov? Yaakov got the bracha. He bought the bechorah. The Chizkuni deals with this point. Look at source number 4, gentlemen. Chizkuni, one of the great Rishonim, on the Torah, Perek Lamed Pasuk Kaftet, on the verse, Vayikberu, and they buried him. Esav is first, V'Yaakov banav. The Chizkuni says with the first word, Lefi. Do you see it? Mm-hmm. Lefi, since Shehaya Bechor, V'Yaakov haya cholek lo kavod, Hikdimo hakatuv. When we learn the Rishonim, the great medieval commentators on the Chumash, we often meet up, like when we learn Gemara and we learn Rashi or Tosafot, we learn the beginning of the answer. Then what do I deduce if there's a beginning of an answer?
What's the question?
There was a question. Well, the question's not written. So we, by the power of inference, what do we have to do? To infer what is the question. Okay? This is a great science when we learn Rashi, Tosfot, the other Rishonim, they often don't bother writing the question. Whatever reasons. There are times they do write the question. But here, let's read what he begins saying, and then you tell me what the question is, okay? I'm reading it again from the word Lefi. Since Shahaya Bechor, since he was the firstborn, V'Yakov ayacholek lo kavod, and Yaakov honored his brother, Hikdimo hakatov. The scripture wrote him first. What's the question Chizkuni is dealing with? Huh?
Why Esav was
Like
written?
honor, like respect.
Why what?
Like honor, respect. You know.
No, not why
was
honor.
Esav written first?
Why is Esav's name? And they buried him. Who's written first?
Esav.
Esav, and then Yaakov.
He's the Bachor.
Shlomo, don't ruin my shiur. I first want to share with my dear students. Teach them kelim, give them kelim, ways and means how to study Torah. We're meeting up with the classic case where the question is not written. And now all of you deserve a chocolate. I bought the kosher ones. And that's their parva. So now you understood the question. What is the question?
Who is the first son?
No.
Who was born first?
What? No, that wasn't the question. What was the question, Yosef?
Whereas Esav is mentioned first.
Why is Esav's mentioned first? Who was on a greater virtue? Who was on a greater level? Yaakov Avinu. He was blessed by God. He bought the Bechorah. Again, you can take two. I'm not watching. No, take the other. Take the others. How's the chocolate?
Beautiful, thank you.
Really? I want to drink the water that Yisrael gave me. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'doro.
Amen.
So the question is that you said Yosef and you also Shmuel. Why is Esav's name before Yaakov? It's showing as if who has what? Who has the greatest privilege? Esav. He's like on a higher level. Answer is not on a higher level. But you know what Yaakov did? He honored his older brother. What was the difference in time that he's older than him? Seconds. But he was biologically the Bechor, even though God, chose Yaakov as if he was the Bechor. Okay? So here, a novelty. Esav was given honor by his brother Yaakov, and maybe this goes in line with what we learned earlier in the Parsha, that Esav invites Yaakov, let's walk together, come with me, we're going to live in Seir. And Yaakov gives him like the cold shoulder to a certain extent. But it seems that maybe they're getting along okay. And at least Yaakov is honoring Esav in this event. Rashi, though, brings a contrast. However, he says, as far as the burial of Avraham Avinu, okay, we learned formerly that who came before who? Yitzchak. His name in the burial preceded Yishmael. And your question is, well, who was born first? Yishmael. What's the man? Would you please interview Yitzchak? Ask him why didn't he honor Yishmael? And ask him right now.
Where is Yishmael?
No, it's not where. Why didn't Yitzchak do the same thing and honor Yishmael? Isn't he the older? This is the question of the Chizkuni. Do you understand his answer, gentlemen, in your good Hebrew? The last 5 words. Lefi Yishmael haya ben hashivcha. Lefi Yishmael haya ben hashivcha. Why didn't Yitzchak give honor to Ishmael in the burial for his father? How did you understand it, Shmuel?
Concubine's child.
He was the maidservant's child, and therefore
Not the right level. It's not the same.
it's not the same level as Esav and Yaakov, both of them born from Rivka. They're both born from Rivka, one of the matriarchs. However, Yishmael, in spite of the fact that he was born biologically first, he was born from a different mother. The mother was Hagar, and she was a maidservant. It's not the same level as Sarah Imenu. So there, we see that Yitzchak took precedence in burial. Okay? So that's part 1 of today's shiur. Yitzchak Avinu passes away, even though chronologically it happens only later. He's reached a great virtue. Son has come finally home. Therefore, the Torah describes that he lived a great life. even though he didn't have an easy life, of course. And the burial service, Esav bothers to come, and Yaakov gives him honor, and he's buried first. That's what we see here in this Pshat and the Rishonim. Any questions or comments? Yes.
You call this a Haftarah class?
I will call this after at the end of the shiur.
Okay.
Okay, very nice. We're now going to go on to part 2 of today's shiur, which happens earlier in the parsha, and that is the passing away of Rachel and her burial. And here we're going to start off with source 5 from our parsha. It's the same chapter, but it's just earlier, Perek Lamed Hey. It's interesting, the proximity of both these great leaders pass away in the same chapter. Okay, remember, let's just prelude and say the following. Yaakov has finally come back to the land of Israel. Yaakov went into Shechem and he purchased property, getting a portion of Olam Haba, like we learned this week in the name of the Ibn Ezra. And then Yaakov, the event of Dinah happens. Correct? The event of Dinah happens, and then Shimon and Levi kill all the men of the town, and then Yaakov is commanded to travel to Beit El. And basically, in Beit El, he's closing the circuit where he made his neder. 35 years ago, he made his vow to make God his God and serve him, and that neder was made in Beit El. Now he's like coming home to finish the circuit here. From Beit El, he starts traveling home. Okay? He's going towards Hebron. Okay? He's on the mountain road that connects Shechem, Beit El, Yerushalayim, and then Beit Lechem, which we're going to learn about now. Beit Lechem, then the Gush Etzion, and then Hebron. Let's read it. Okay? We're now in chapter 35 of our Parsha. We're going to see the following 4 psukim. Vayisumi Beit El, and they traveled from Beit El. Vayot kivrat haaretz, and there was a certain unit of land, meaning a certain distance. Lavo Ephrata, to arrive in a town called Ephrat. Mazal tov vatelid Rachel. Rachel gave birth. However, vatikash belidita. Vatikash from the word Kashe. She had a very difficult delivery. Vayibak shota belidita. And when this delivery was so difficult, vatomer laha mialedet, her coach, her midwife that was helping her give birth, she says to Rachel, Al tirei, don't be afraid. Ki gam ze lach ben. Gam, this is also a son. Also, in addition to Yosef. So you're a little prejudiced about that name, so that's why you'll fast off the revolver. The next pasuk, Vayi b'tzeit nafsha. And when her nefesh was exiting her body, meaning Kimeta, she's dying. Vatikra shemo, and she calls him Ben Oni, the son of sadness, the son of mourning. V'aviv, and the Abba, who's the Abba?
Yes.
Yaakov. Kara lo Binyamin. You heard of that name?
Benjamin.
He called him Binyamin.
What does that mean?
Ben Oni, the son of sadness, or the son of the right, which is the south.
The south, yes. Yemen.
Yemen. Very good. Yemen has the same letters. But as I always teach in Tanakh, and Rav Mali once taught this to me, our backs are, when we're talking about directions in the Tanakh, or like you're sitting, just straighten up for a second. We'll use you as an exhibit. No. There you go. When we learn Tanakh and we learn directions, our backs are west, our face is to the east. Pull out your right hand to the right. The right, Yamin, is to the south, and your left hand is to the north. That's the directions. So the name is Binyamin. The next point, which is the major point I want to get to, the last verse before we get to source 6, Vatamot Rachel passed away. Vatikaver bederech Ephrata. and she's buried on the derech, on the road,
Right.
to the town called Efrat. He, Beit Lechem, or Beit Lechem. Efrat is Beit Lechem. But is it in Efrat the burial? No. Is it in Beit Lechem?
No.
No. It's further what? North or south? He's understanding directions. Well, I can't hold both of you.
North?
Something along
South, because it's Benjamin, so south.
Right now, Yaakov and his family are traveling south. The passing away happens at this point on the road to Ephrat, on the road to Beit Lechem. That means she passes away of Beit Lechem, north of Beit Lechem, north of Beit Lechem, in this direction. Okay. Anything bother you?
Yeah, is this modern day Fry?
Could be.
You don't know.
What else? It could very well be. It's named after this area. Any other? What should bother us?
She's not buried in Machpelah.
Oh, is that what's written here? Oh my goodness. Terrible. Shouldn't Rachel deserve a premier burial place where the
No,
the
'cause
matriarch?
halakha says within 48 hours you have to bury the body, and he wouldn't make it in time.
We're going to get to that point. Very nice. So we're raising a major question, and are we going to ask? Is it just a halachic matter? We'll relate to the halachic matter in a moment. We want to know, why doesn't Rachel get this burial? I just wanted to see a source that perhaps I did not bring. Lamed Hey.
Because she was tummy from giving birth, right?
That's not a reason for tum'ah. No, here. Okay, look, gentlemen. We want to know this major issue. Why isn't Rachel buried in Marata Machpelah? And of course, we can raise an obvious question. Is it a technical matter only, or is it a matter of principle? And if it is a matter of principle, what is the matter? What is the principle that we're trying to understand here? Let's see the words of, you know what? No, I want to see source 8. Source 8, Yaakov Avinu, Shabbat Shalom Shalom. Yaakov Avinu in source 8 is about to be dying and offering his last wishes and blessings to his children in Mitzrayim. And he says in source 8, Bereshit Memchet, towards the end of the book of Bereshit, quote, Vani and I, he's telling his children, Bevoimi Padan, when I came from Padan, meaning Padan Aram Naraim, Meta alai Rachel, she died on me. Where? Be'eretz Canaan. Where specifically? Baderech, on the road. Where? Be'od Kivrat Eretz, there's only a certain amount of area to get to Lavo Ephrata. And what did I do? V'kperesha, when I buried her there, Bederech Efrat, this very lengthy explanation to his children seems to be wordy, unusual. He Beit Lechem. Why is Yaakov talking this way? I want to see the beginning of source 9 to begin an answer, so you'll try to get the fever, the atmosphere, what the great Rishonim are explaining here. In this, is this something apologetic, and why? Why is Yaakov explaining this to his sons? I'm bringing here Ha'amek Davar. Ha'amek Davar is, of course, the in-depth matter written by the great scholar, the Netziv of Volozhin, Rabbi Naftali Tzuyuda Berlin. Okay, who Rav Kook was a colleague of in the Volozhin, great Volozhin Yeshiva, which chain of students built it from the Vilna Gaon. And he has a wonderful commentary, great commentary. I want to bring his first sentence. Harishonim, letter 9. Vani bevoimi padan, etc. Vigomer. Harishonim, the great medieval commentators, Zal in blessed memory, Pirshu, they explain, Shabalit natzel ala kvura. He's coming to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my dear sons, that I buried your Ima here on the road and not in the most respectful place. That's what a lot of the Rishonim explained. The Netziv is not going to accept that explanation and offer something alternative. But before we get to that, let's relate to one of the great famous prophecies. God willing, when you get the next chance to travel to Kever Rachel and pray by the holy site, which that's a holy site, and so many millions of prayers of Jewish souls over the generations have prayed there. We see a lot of art over the centuries, what Kever Rachel looked like on the road with a dome, a roof in the middle, and so on and so forth. But you should know, there are those that think, based on prophecy in the book of Samuel, that she's buried in Ramah. And seems to be a contradiction here between sources of our scriptures. Because here in Bereshit, it seems she's buried on the way to Beit Lechem, which is south of Yerushalayim. And there are sources that we can learn from the book of Samuel, which we're not going to get into today. You can see it on YouTube by Rabbi Dr. Chagi Ben Artzi, okay, one of people that I know. He's a doctor and a rabbi in Bar Ilan University. He's put out a lot of special books. He was my proctor in the seminary for teachers to test me in class many years ago. And he's a great tour guide in many places, a tremendous knowledge of Tanakh and the land of Israel. Any event, you should know that there's an alternative explanation. Where is the burial site? And it'll be based upon this prophecy and another that I'm not going to bring yet, that she's buried on the road that I travel every day between Geva, Binyamin, and Yerushalayim before Pisgat Ze'ev. And that's like the beginning of the area of the Benjamin area. And there's thought there. Let's read a basis of this thought. Look at it together with me, please. Source number 6, Yirmiyahu, Perek Lamed Aleph, Jeremiah chapter 31, Psukim Tetvav to Yud Zayin. And there are famous melodies and songs about this great prophecy. Ko Amar Hashem. Thus, God says, Kol Beramah. There's a voice in Ramah. Usually, we understand that the term Ramah is a town. Okay? Shmuel HaNavi was born, bred, and lived in Ramah. Where is Ramah? Oh, have you ever been on the roof? Can you see the minaret of Samuel the prophet, Shmuel HaNavi?
From here, it's very hard, but from Givat Shaul,
You've seen it many times, right? It stands out on top of the mount above Ramot. Some say that's the area of Ramah. What voice is heard in Ramah? Nishma nehi bichi tamruim. They hear a wailing, a crying voice of who? Rachel. Rachel is crying. Why? Mivakal banea. She's crying on behalf of her children. We're talking about the matriarch of history of the Jewish people, Rachel. Me'anali nachem. She refuses to be comforted. Al banan, her children. Why? Ki einenu. They're not here. Well, where are they? In the Galut, exile. And what is Rachel's job? To cry and pray for, like a mother cries and prays for her children, something natural. Ko amar Hashem, thus says God, Min'i kolech mi bechi. Have your voice abstain from this crying. Ve'einayach midima, and your eyes from tearing. Why? What is God telling? What is Yirmiyahu saying in the name of God to Rachel? There's reward for your activities, God says. Veshavu, and they will return me eretz oyev, from the land of the enemies. Furthermore, v'yesh tikva lacharitech. There's hope. Tikva, yes, you see that word? There's hope for the end of your days, Num Hashem, God says. Veshavu vanim, and the children shall return ligvulam, to their borders. So it seems that Rachel is buried in a place called Ramah, because that's where her voice of praying is coming from. Let's see what the Ramban Nachmanides says. And again, it may shake you that there's an alternative explanation to exactly where she's buried. Let's look at number 7. Ramban Nachmanides. V'chein ra'iti, so did I see, she'ein kvura b'Ramah v'lo karav la. I didn't see her buried in Ramah, nor a place close to it. Aval haRamah asher leBinyamin Rachok mimena. The Ramah that's in the area of Benjamin is very far. And there's another Ramah, Ramah Asher Bahar Ephraim, which is in the mountains of Ephraim, which is further north. Rachok mimena yoter mishnei yamim. He is dealing with the problem that I did not see when Ramban Nachmanides in the 1200s, when he came on voyage from Spain and arrived, and he traveled to Hebron. There was hardly a minion there. There's a famous story about the Ramban making it to Hebron. And then he traveled in other places, and he searched for Rachel's tomb north of Yerushalayim. So I didn't find it. So what is the term, a voice of Rachel praying from Ramah? Is it not the place? Al Kain, therefore, in the middle of line 2 of this source, number 7, Ani Omer, I'm saying the following. Shakatuv she'omer, the scripture that says here in Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu Lamed Aleph, Kol beRamah nishma, a voice is heard in the town called Ramah. It's a militza. It's something, a metaphor. Kederach mashal, it's all a proverb. Lemor, to say, Ki hayta Rachel tzoeket bekol gadol u'mispeid ma. She was crying out with a crying voice and praying. Ad, to what extent? Shenishma hakol merachok barama. She's praying really where? In Beit Lechem, outskirts of Beit Lechem. Her crying and praying is so great you can hear a voice all the way north to Yerushalayim in Ramah. Shu barosh shahar livna Binyamin. Why to Ramah? Because Benjamin, the beginning of the area of Binyamin, is a place called Ramah. I passed it today, traveling into Yerushalayim. Okay? So her voice is heard from the outskirts of Bethlehem, and going all the way to the area of her children, where Benjamin is that geographic area of his tribal area. Okay, I want to skip to the next to last line where there's a period. Vinir ed. You see at the end of the line? Now, remember, a lot of the Rishonim explain why did Yaakov Avinu, bury his wife there? Because, well, she died there. And he's basically saying himself, I'm sorry, in his last words, in his last speeches in Mitzrayim, don't hold this against me, my dear sons. I'm sorry I buried her there. The Ramban, though, has an idea. V'nireh b'einai, it appears in my eyes, in my mind. Ki kvara Yaakov baderech, next to last line. Yaakov buried her on the road. V'lo echnisa le'ir Beit Lechem Yudah, but he didn't bring her into the town. The neighboring town is Beit Lechem. Not far away. Of course, Beit Lechem is part of which tribal area? Judah. Okay, and he didn't bring her to Beit Lechem Yudah, Krovasha, which is so close. Why? The feature Tzafa Beruach HaKodesh. Yaakov had divine inspiration. She Beit Lechem Efrata Yelidah. He knows that Beit Lechem belongs to Judah. He really wanted to bury her in Binyamin. Does that really mean that the area that she's buried right now, according to this, in the outskirts of Bethlehem, is Binyamin? I don't know. Hard for me to say that. Doesn't make sense to me because he wanted to bury me, but he couldn't. So maybe it's like no choice. I'm not going to bury in Beit Lechem because that's certainly Judea. I'm going to bury her outside because it's not fitting for a woman like Rachel Imenu to be buried not in her tribal area. It's like also some sort of like excuse. He could have brought her in to the town, but didn't bury. It sounds to be much more respectable. Bury her inside the town. On the road? Who buries people on the road? Yeah. By the way, today, last time we visited, I think a year ago, or a year and a half ago, we know what, thank God that the governments, the left-wing governments of before did not give up in all the negotiation and so-called peace talks to give up Beit Lechem. We really be in trouble. And now it looks like it's guarded with a Chinese wall or something. It's so gigantic. Have you seen it? Have you been there?
No, I'd like to go. Can you help me go?
It's not hard to get there. We'll go as a group maybe. You see the gigantic walls, solid cemented walls. Why? Because we have peace with the Arabs. That's why they're solid cemented walls. Looks like the Chinese wall or something like that. In any event, it looks like an army compound, defended with these walls. and you go inside, and it's very easy to get there with the local Yerushalayim bus. In any event, we have yet to see something that will explain a principle here, and that'll be done by the Netziv of Volozhin. Gentlemen, I'm not even by the Netziv, it's Chazal. The Netziv says on this spot here, which I didn't quote, but he quotes it in part of his last source. I'm going to do it outside. She died at that moment as she gave birth. A yoledet, a woman that gives birth, goes through a lot of bleeding. It's not respect of the dead who's bleeding to delay the burial. The Netziv of Volozhin, of Naftali Tzuyuder Berlin, explains there's a halachic reason why she was immediately brought to burial. Why? Because she's the yoledet, she just gave birth. She has a lot of bleeding, and it's not respectful to delay the burial. Yaakov, of course, where do you think he wanted to bury her?
Hebron.
In Hebron. Of course, the Hebron, in the Machpelah cave. But to go from the area of Beit Lechem to Hebron is another, it's about 15, 20, it's at least 20, 25 kilometers. That's a day's trip plus more. If you have little children and you're walking, that would not be respect. That's what the Gemara says. And that's why he buried her there. However, the idea of her being on the derech, the Gemara brings it. She's the mother of Israel. The mother of Israel is the one that cares most for the children. Okay? A lot of things in our married life, my wife says, hey, Menachem, it's 12 midnight. Where is he? He's not home yet. I said, leave him alone. Let him come home when he wants to come home. The mothers are always the ones that are worried when the children are coming home. Okay? And then she says, Menachem, you call him up. No, you're worried, you call her up. In any event, Rachel Imenu, this is a great metaphor that she's purposely buried. That's how God wanted it to happen. On the derech. Why? Because she is going out there and she's seeing how the children are being taken out of the country. Temple destruction number one. And when Eretz Yisrael is being destroyed and we're being exiled, and we're going out to Babylon, all the Jews, which predominantly then were living where? In the Judean area. Remember, there was an exile before from the Shomron. And then the major exile after the temple destruction is happening from the Judean area. That's the Beit Lechem, Gush Etzion, Hebron, and the lower hill area. So almost everyone en route to Babylon being exiled is going to pass through Beit Lechem, the outskirts of Beit Lechem. And she's praying. She's praying for the return. She's praying for the ruin and the destruction that has happened. And she's tormented and she's in a sad time. So the fact that she's buried on the way, metaphorically, is allowing for Rachel Imenu to give her prayers to God, to cry, and now ask for their return. When will they come back? So therefore, everything that happens, even though we know there's a specific reason. Well, she gave birth and she died because of the hard delivery. And the fact that she's buried there, but there's a purpose. She's the mother. Rachel is called the bayit, the house. The house, as the Maharal explains in several places, is a place which is an enclosure. There are walls and there's a roof. Everything is contained. Everything is united. She is uniting the house of Israel. She's the bayit. And she is looking and praying for the return of the Jewish people. And happy are we today in our generation, okay, that Rachel Imenu's burial site, which was visited over the course of all the centuries, and you see paintings, what it looks like exactly, and now it looks like a gigantic place. It was refurbished, of course, is a place that maybe hundreds of thousands of people a year visit this place. And maybe tens of thousands on her yurt site, on our day of passing away. This is the end of the shore. So happy are we that we have the ability to visit her place, pray for her, and we're asking for the great thing to happen, all the Jewish people to come back home. V'shavu vanim legvula.